Today we're talking about optimizing creatives in a post-iOS 14.5 world. The webinar today is brought to you by Fixel and Pudding. We joined hands to really try and drive that understanding of what we as marketers can do in this time of change, and really try and distill the key insights that we've seen from the different learnings that we have, trying to really study and understand what's happening across Facebook, across Apple, and all these different platforms. So just a quick agenda on what we're going to be touching on today. We'll start off with a quick recap, try and break down the different upcoming changes in Apple and Facebook, what's been going on, how this will be impacting us, and what we kind of need to know about that. After this quick recap, Edgar will dive right into it and start talking about how you can optimize creatives in 2021, the different ways and tactics we can really try and optimize our campaigns going forward. Anastasia will talk a bit from their experience and what they've seen optimizing these campaigns at scales and really diving into the algorithmic way to look at creatives and really optimize them. And we'll finish up with a Q&A session with Edgar and Anastasia. So really, floor is yours. Feel free to ask any question as these pop along. Now, we open up with a disclaimer. We don't really like doing so, but that's the reality. Everything that we've learned and we've come to understand is based on the documentation that's existing on Facebook. Some of it is coming from Apple. We've talked to numerous reps. We've talked to numerous Facebook advertisers. We've really done kind of our groundwork or legwork even to try and understand what's going on. We've done our own kind of analysis and research, and we've installed all the beta versions of Apple and whatever else to really try and drive these insights. At the same time, things are changing constantly, sometimes every hour. And we are aware of these limitations. So there could be a case that some of these things might change as we go along. Some of these might be even wrong by tomorrow. But as of now, these are the things that we are understanding, and we're trying to pass on that knowledge. So please accept our humble apology if things do change down the line. So what's been happening? Basically, this all started with Apple coming and really changing the way that advertising is done. They've come and laid down some basic new privacy settings that will change how advertising is tracked across Apple devices. This would apply to all the iOS devices. That's the iPhones, the iPads, Mac OS, and whatever else. And this would greatly impact advertising. As a result, the ad industry has retaliated against Apple, and they're trying to drive their own kind of standard, which will be enforced, one that is still compliant and is still respecting the user's privacy. But still, this is something that would change in a very impactful way, the way that we're used to actually track and measure our campaigns. Now, the most vocal opposer of Apple has been Facebook, and this is why we'll be talking primarily about Facebook, because they're setting their own standard. So this clash of giants has been primarily around these two. It's not to say that other platforms will be left untouched or unchanged over the upcoming month, but the main difference or the main kind of changes that we're seeing are between these two platforms. Now, if we'll dive into it, we'll see that Facebook have introduced their own AEM standard, and this is a response to Apple's PCM. AEM is aggregated event measurement versus PCM, private click measurement, and they both have some very, very close similarities. The three top things that we're seeing here is, one, reporting will be limited to the campaign level only. This means that reporting that we've been used to getting that's seen at the ad level, we can see a specific creative and optimize which creative is actually converting better. This won't be available for us going forward. The reporting will be delayed by up to 72 hours. So any change that we're doing in our ad sets today will only reflect 3 days later. So that's also a major change that's going to be coming upon us. And finally, we'll have significantly less conversion events that we're able to track. If today we can virtually track unlimited events across different websites and domains, at the time now, we'll be limited to only a handful of such events. So these are the main 3 pillars that are coming in this change. And how is this going to impact us? So for event tracking, there's going to be some major restrictions on users. And first and foremost, there's going to be restrictions on the way that people are actually opting in or out of the tracking. So first off, we have that limit of events. We'll have no more than 8 events in total. So a single domain can have up to 8 events. These events can be purchase, add to cart, initiate checkout, adding to wish list, and all these other different things. If previously we would have added scroll events, or we would have added people who clicked on any element, or all these different things, now we'll be significantly more limited on these. Another thing to note is any subdomain or any folder would count up to the limit of that same domain. So there's no really a simple way of getting around this. If you have multiple pixels or multiple domains or subdomains or whatnot, this is going to be difficult to manage. The events can and should be prioritized, because some events are worth more than others. If you have a purchase event, that's more meaningful than an add to cart event, because at the end of the day, the single most highly prioritized event will be reported back. So you want to prioritize these correctly and have the right ones reporting back to your ad platform. And that's also a takeaway from these limits. Now, as we said previously, reporting will be delayed, and this again will span 24 to 72 hours on a random interval. We really don't have any control over this. Now, if we're looking at people that are opting out of the conversions or opting out of tracking, basically, these will be opted into a single modeled event. So if you have people that have opted out, that have selected not to be tracked by Facebook, in that case, we'll be seeing a very, very limited set of data for these people. We'll only be seeing your highest reported event. So in that case, that could be a purchase event, and really that's all the data you'll have for these people. And that data will also not be available for other crossing, for example, all these demographical breakdowns or even remarketing audiences for that. Another major change that we need to be prepared for is attribution windows. In absence of proper tracking data, will only be limited to 1-day click or 1-day view 7-day click data. We won't have any further look back windows. We won't be able to create or attribute for other view through conversions. So that too is going away soon. Now, not necessarily tied to this change, but something that's also going to be impacting us, and we'll talk about this when we're looking at optimizing creatives. Facebook has also applied these limitations on the number of actual amount of ads you can run within your account. Now, originally, this has spun before the Apple changes have happened, but this will also impact the way we can optimize our creatives. If we're limited in the amount of ads we can create, it also causes some, I'd say, difficulties in the way that we're able to optimize such, and Edgar and Anastasia will touch on these as well. So summarizing really kind of what's been going on, we can see that people will now actively have to opt in to be tracked. The number of events will be limited, and the limitation is set per a specific domain. Only users that opt in, we will be able to retarget to these. We can create these custom audiences and do all these kind of things. And we will potentially have a limit set also on our campaigns. We won't be able to create limitless amount of campaigns. This also comes from the limitation on ads, but additionally, some limitation that's coming from the actual tracking that's going to be changed to some limited extent. Now, we've said a lot, and we've given all these different changes that are coming upon us. And let's try and break this down, and let's give some actual example that I hope will make things slightly clearer. So let's take, for example, Alex. Alex sees an ad on her Facebook app, and she clicks through from that ad. Now, what would happen in this case? Now, here we'd see two examples. We'll have the current situation and the post-PCM or AEM situation. So she clicks the ad on 10 a.m. She visits the website. She doesn't complete that purchase. And Facebook is currently able to identify which user came in, which campaign has she clicked on, which ad has she clicked on. And Facebook will pretty much have all this data available. Now, if she comes back later that day to complete that purchase, but you came in through a Google search, you comes in from a different source altogether, Facebook is able to attribute that conversion back to the actual ad that you've seen and clicked. So all tracking, all events, everything is attributed and everything is in place correctly. If we're looking at a post-PCM scenario, if she comes in, she clicks on that ad, and she comes and visits the website without completing the purchase, the data for the campaign is stored, and we're able to really identify that campaign. Facebook would have the ad ID data, but they won't necessarily share that back because, again, all the privacy limitations. If she comes back from a different source within that same day, in many cases, Facebook won't be able to trace back that specific user. So if Alex has opted out, data won't exist. We won't be able to track that cross-session interaction. We'll be really in the dark here, and we'll be unable to attribute back these specific actions. So with an opt-in, we'll have campaign level reporting only in that within a span of 7 days. With an opt-out, no purchase happened, no attribution for Facebook, and we're completely in the dark. So this is really why we're so kind of worried and concerned about these changes. And these things are real, and these things are really around the corner in terms of happening. And this is why we really think we should be acting and educating on these so people can be better prepared for this coming forward. So I hope this kind of makes things clearer. But in any case, it sets the stage for Edgar now to talk. He'll be talking about the creatives optimization. Edgar is the co-founder and CEO of Fixel. He's a campaign manager for about 15 or 16 years now, running campaigns in millions of dollars, working with brands globally. He's also written a best-selling book on this. So he's quite well versed in it, and I'm sure you'll find plenty in value in what he's about to present. So Edgar, take the mic.
Thank you so much, and Ala, thank you from this very warm intro and for this amazing opening. And let's, Ala, if you can open the screen share for me. This can be nice.
Here you go.
So after this intro, can you see my screen? Alad, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can see your
Okay,
screen.
thank you. So I will start by really on the commercial side. This is the commercial break for 20 seconds. What is Fixel and what are we doing and how it can help you later on. When we think about marketers today, we have a lot of data. We have some of the people that make a purchase and we can identify them. In most of the cases, they represent a very, very small portion normally 1 to 2% of the people who visiting our site. We have a bit more very high quality users that added to cart or initiate checkout. And those users, in many cases, represent still 5 to 7% of the visitors. But we have 95% of the people visiting our site discovering. How can we distinguish between those 95%? Which one of them is relevant for our marketing goals as a conversion or as an audience? And the fact is that what we're doing in Fixel, we taking over 40 engagement signals, like where the user coming from, what is his device, what action did he did on the site, how many products he viewed, which product, scroll and traffic sources, and way more. And instead of you manually build rules to say this one is relevant, this one isn't relevant, we're using AI in order to automatically predict which one of your visitors have a probability to make a purchase and which one doesn't. And all this data goes directly to the ad platform that you're working with, like Facebook, Google, and others. The outcome is that we can identify a scalable audience within your visitors that have this high value users, that have the probability to make a purchase, and that you can focus on. This is like Pixel in 25 seconds. And if you want more information, you have our email in the end of the presentation, and you can feel free to reach out. Now let's talk a bit about creative. What you're seeing here is a very simple shirt, but this shirt represents a lot because I got an ad for something similar. I'm going into the group of the 35 to 45. I born in October, and I'm a fan of Federer. So when a marketer go and he want to target, in this case, the POD, the print of demand segment, it's really easy to build a segment of, give me the people that are in this age group, like shopping online, born in October, and like Federer. So you have a lot of correlations, and then you can target me an ad that is really, really relevant. The reality is that what we did until today, until the upcoming changes, is when we plan our creative, we can take as many messages as we saw, we can match them into as many audiences and set each one of them in the right placement. We can build this unique creative for Instagram and this unique creative for the feed. We're talking specifically here about Facebook, and we will probably see other limits in other ad platforms and in the future. So this strategy works very well. And if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, so let's drop it and let's find our winners. But let's just talk and present all the limits that we see within the AEM, and more severe with the upcoming PCM, the Apple protocol, that's going to block way more than Facebook is blocking today. So what do we as marketers need to do when we plan our creative from tomorrow? What are the set of actions? So I will start with the #1 recommendation. This is the #1 recommendation that I personally think this is the #1 recommendation by Facebook. Build a brand. Everyone, take 2 seconds. Look at this picture. What do you see here? 90% of the audience who will see this Guinness, they will see a beer, but you don't have a beer here. You see a brand so strong. And when you think about what do you need to do, is you need to make people see your beer like Guinness did here. This is what you want to achieve in your end game. And take this recommendation. This should be your #1 focus. Yes, work in a very straightforward strategy process. Understand who is your audience, what are your messaging, how do you control your frequency, and how do you control what your audience see when he tackle with your brand, because this going to be very important. Now, this will be the high level. What are the tactics that you can start doing tomorrow morning within running ads for iOS users focused mainly on Facebook? First of all, a lot of talk that we're going to have a lot of problem, like in the case of Alex, that we're going to have a problem with the tracking between this click, that people going and see the ad within the they see the ad within the Facebook app browser, but they make the purchase on the Safari. So this connection, go. And your goal as marketer is to think, going back a lot of years, what will generate me high quality traffic? Because we're seeing constantly that high quality traffic equal high conversion rate. And we will talk into a minute how we can actually check it and then to optimize according to real conversions. So think, when a user click on your ad, what will happen to him? How you can optimize for the last click. I would recommend focusing on engagement signals. You can use Pixel, but you don't have to. You can do it by page views. You can do it by time on site, by scroll. You can find manually what are the engagement signals within your site that actually represent a high quality visitors, and build this event as your conversion event. And this is, by the way, relevant mainly when you're doing for the top of the funnel. Audiences, new audience, he doesn't know you that well. You do have this buying cycle of a 2-3 visits to your site until they make the purchase. As an example, like I showed in Pixel, you can do it according to the device, to the time of site, to many variables. Just make sure you can even use like unbounce. If you have content site, look and understand where are your high quality visitors. This number 2, use Google Analytics to find opportunities. Facebook just announced they're going to kill Facebook Analytics, which was a great platform in June. So Google Analytics, I assume that most of the people here are using Google Analytics. So using Analytics, what I personally like to do is to take 4 or 5 metrics that are relevant to my business goals, then to understand in each one of them, where can I find enough conversions? Sorry, where do I have a difference in the conversion rate versus the average? Here is an example of a data that you can pull within your GA. You can take age, gender, state, device, and interest. And when you have enough data to see this is the conversion rate, and this is the difference from the site average. In this example, the site average for conversion rate is 1.5. So if I find this audience, in this example, female from New York coming from iPhone that like cars, at 25 to 34, I can take this data and I can segment it within Facebook or Twitter or within other platform. And in many cases, it works really, really, really nice, because we understand where is the audience that is really relevant for our marketing goals. And highly recommended, if you don't have enough conversions, I would recommend to reach through like 100 conversion events for each combination. Go and use engagement signals. You can use add to cart. If you don't have enough, go for softer engagement signals. You can use Pixel, but you really don't have to use your own engagement signals that you have determined, and try to understand where you can find those combinations that are relevant for your marketing goals. So I talk about optimizing your media to engagement, but how can we understand if this optimization actually make money? The solution for this that I really like is using the offline conversions. The main idea about the offline conversion, you're taking the data, the identified data, mainly email and phone number from your CRM or e-commerce platform, and then you connecting this into Facebook. It doesn't really have to be in an in-store experience. You can do it for your online. You can do it for your online store, and then you can get a data on which one of your ads, your campaign, and your message actually derive conversions. So you optimize the media according to engagement, but you check it according to real life conversions. And a few important things to notice when you talk about the Facebook offline conversion. First of all, after you import them, go and manually check within your campaign which one of them derive the conversions. Unlike the conversion API, which is different, and we won't go into the technicality of this. Actually, I would recommend doing both for the advanced users. The offline conversions are not, according to some Facebook reps, the offline conversions not going to be impacted at all by the iOS changes. And it's really, really important. The reason is because you have the data within Facebook, and then the data came from your CRM data that is not depends on iOS to Facebook. So you're actually bypassing the whole blocking of Apple, which sounds fantastic. The disadvantage in this approach that you can't use offline conversion as a conversion event. You can't optimize your media towards offline conversion. You can manually check it, and then, like in the campaign management a few years ago, to actually remove, increase your bids, make the changes for the winning creative and audiences. Now we talk about the limits that Facebook have for each Facebook page. What I can recommend you, and we talked about it in the beginning, was the shirt with the October Legend Boy in October by Federer. So what I would recommend you is to look less for very, very narrow audiences in your top of the funnel, and to have less messages, which is a bit bum, but this is the situation right now that Facebook is enforcing us. I'm talking about here advertisers with less than 100K per month, and try to reach to scalable audiences within your Facebook, within your winning messages. If you have an ad that doesn't work, kill it fast. Once you spend an amount that equal to 50 conversions, it doesn't work, kill this campaign. Don't wait longer. When you talk about your audiences, it can be website audiences or CRM audiences. I like to group them into two groups. One group, the low engaging, the people that know us a bit, they might saw a movie, they might engage with our content debate, they might visit our site, but they didn't got into the high engagement. And we got the people that show this high engagement within our content. What I would recommend, the users that got the high engagement, go for the hard sell messaging. The users that got a low engagement, give them more content. Take them into your site, make them engage with your content, and then they will be more ready to go and to make the purchase. I think a channel that people are not talking enough is today reality, taking us more and more into the email and SMS marketing. Push your resources. Your resources is by spending money, is by time. It work. It's really, really like your newsletter subscribers need to sell more than they sell now, probably. You need to focus your efforts there, not only on Facebook. And we talk a lot about Facebook, but my personal recommendation is you can't rely only on Facebook. When you talk about your media planning, even if Facebook works fantastically, you can't put all the eggs in one basket. You can't say I'm running my ad only on Facebook, because if you have a problem within Facebook, you have no ads and your business have no revenue. So you have to diverse them. You have to look always for scalable media, not like media that giving you 10 sales. It doesn't really interesting. And when you measure the results, don't count only on Facebook. It's really easy that you have one dashboard, you go to your ads manager and you make your decision about according to what happened there. But the situation today, and this is, I think, was relevant in 2020, and it was relevant way before. Now it's becoming much more relevant. Measure your results according to your CRM, according to your e-commerce platform. It can be Shopify, Magento, WordPress, Wix, and use Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, any analytics solution that you have, use them in order to optimize your media. Summarizing my pitch before we going into the very interesting part by Anastasia. It's really, really, really cool. So shorter cycles, optimize according to the website engagement. This need to be your conversion event for the top of the funnel audiences. Google Analytics is a fantastic platform, or your Adobe Analytics, a fantastic platform to find opportunities. Use the Facebook offline conversion, and then you can use it to check and then to optimize your engagement campaign according to the conversions. Group your audiences, focus on SMS and email, diversify your media, and don't measure only on Facebook. So now we're going to give the host back to Elad, and that will welcome Anastasia. And I want to say you thank you very much, and I will come back to the Q&A section.
Don't go too far. So thank you, Edgar. Anastasia will now take the lead, and she will now dive into the creative and optimization at scale. She only looks kind of, sensitive, but Anastasia is really the brains behind putting AI, one of the co-founders and the CEO of the company, been doing ad tech for quite a few years now, and really optimizing campaigns at great scale that I was actually quite fascinated to see myself. So she has plenty of insight. So guys, dig in.
Thank you very much, Elad. Can you make me host so I can share my screen? Okay, amazing. So just making sure, guys, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, Elad. In the next 5, 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about ad creative in the post-iOS world. And basically, there are 2 things that we heard before that are going to happen. The first one was, just like Edgar said, build a brand. Now, this is a really unique topic that is going to talk for each specific company on its own, which I'm not going to touch a lot. The main thing that I'm going to touch in terms of tips and insights is about, let's say you have your brand guidance, what kind of thing you can do to improve your creative by staying within them. Before that, a little bit about Pudding. So my name is Anastasia. I'm co-founder and CEO at Pudding AI. What is Pudding AI? So Pudding AI is a real-time creative analysis platform. Basically, we help marketers to easily understand and communicate their ad creative performance and get actionable insight in real time based on their KPI. So diving a little deeper, when we're looking at creative and how it looked in the past, we basically can see several things. We had unlimited budget and unlimited options to try and to test creative, so we can A/B test everything, tons of messages, concept. We could run different dynamic creative optimization. We could test audiences, deliver that, and in the end to allocate more budget on the winner choice and then to test again. But then we came with several limitations. As we saw earlier, there are basically mainly 2 things that affect. The first one is the limited creative that we can run per account. when the second one is the limited event that we can track. What does that mean? That basically means two things. The first one, we need to choose creative wisely, and the second one, we need to choose what events we want to track. In other words, we need to have kind of a strategy. And that's basically what I'm going to talk with you today. So I'm going to talk about choosing wisely creative types, strategy for images, for videos, and a little bit I'm going to touch on creative fatigue and concepts. So let's dive in. Before that, a short disclaimer. All the insight and the tips that I'm going to talk with you about are basically going to look on two types of KPI, the beginning of the funnel, which is going to be CTR, and a long-term KPI, which is actually our final goal, when I'm going to look for cost per purchases. And the data that we're looking for is basically the last quarter of 2021. So when we are looking at the different creative types, the first thing that we can see is that, as we know, video is the king. For both the beginning and the end of funnel, we can see that using video is actually something that driving a lot of conversions at the beginning and in the end. But small thing that we should consider that we also see lately, mostly for e-commerce, that Facebook created a new type of carousel, which called product carousel, which actually showing some kind of promising, and we really suggest you to try this type out. So when we're looking about creative, we'll start with visuals and with kind of image insights. So when I'm looking at the beginning of the funnel, when I'm trying to build my strategy in images, there are several things that we would say would be a best practices that you should really consider in using. The first one is, I know an image is visual, but you should remember that you have an option to put some text on it. So always try to share a short value proposition because it's really increased performance. Another thing is that when we're looking at an ad, it needs to be clear. So it's really good to use a single object, 1 to 2 objects, or a close-up object, and not to do too many and multiply objects. The other one is when we're talking in e-commerce, we actually saw that having a free shipping is a really positive one. And when we're at the beginning of the funnel, maybe we shouldn't talk a lot about crossing out prices and this kind of discounts. Another areas for exploration, which we really believe you should consider, but it's changing from brand to brand, is to think about close up of different objects of your product, single or a multi-groups. How do you want to see only one of them or maybe a pair, but definitely not too many? Should the text be on a separate layer or part of the image? And of course, using different discounts for example, like 20% off, etc. What does that mean? It means that if we're looking at those two ads, that having my value proposition in is something that I should definitely use and have it in a written way. Although when I'm talking about pricing discounts, it's something that at the beginning of the funnel is not really converting for us. Moreover, having like the free shipping and a closed brand compared to having a lot of multicolors, a different type of shoes, and having like a discount specifically added. But then when we're looking at the end of funnel, we can see that something actually changed. So when we're looking at the end of funnel, then actually having the crossed out pricing, we see that it's actually really performing, meaning that when we are looking at the end of the funnel, it's probably people who already seen our brand in the first place, already know about us. And then when they see this again and again, so when we're targeting end of the funnel audiences, we can see that we can add pricing. We can add sometimes still keep this small amount of objects, but also we can add different discounts. So for example, here I could keep the same kind of image, but add the price model because the person is already familiar with my brand and what I'm trying to present. And in the same second example, I can add the 30% off within my shipping brand. Overall, when I'm looking at image strategy, there are basically two things that we should keep at all as an overall score. The first one, when we're talking about colors and we're talking about style elements, it's really good to keep consistency, whether we're in the beginning of the funnel, if we're going in the middle, in the end of that, and when the person is going to our website and purchasing it out. So for example, if we're looking at our webinar, you can see that when you clicked on the webinar to RSVP, it has one kind of design. And then when you go to the RSVP page, it kept that design. So it's really important to keep the flow. This is one hand. On the second one, Something is also really important when we are creating an ad within our brand is to pay attention that we have a flow of vision, like what the person is looking for, and is there a clear message or a clear way for him to looking. So having like one object, clear value proposition, and keep our text starting from one corner going to another. What do we mean by that? If we're looking at those two ads, the one on the left and the one on the right, which one do you think will be easier and will perform better? One of the things that we can definitely say, it will probably be the one on the left. And why is that? Because it has a clear vision starting from the top left corner and going all the way to the right one, compared to the other one, which is really messy and the value proposition is stuff all over and making us really confused of what to look and when to look at that. Moving a little on, let's talk about video insights. So when we're talking about videos in the beginning of the funnel, something that we should see, we see trending lately, is actually starting with a quieter audio and then going higher with that. Another thing that we also see consistently continuing is keeping the social proof. So we should have it sliding in. We should talk about how many users we have, how many happy users we have. And just like we saw in the images, don't overdoing this with objects. Keeping 1 to 2 objects, having some kind of even a close-up of part of them, and having an active CTA, like get out, do this, like offer your audience to do something about it. Different style words to explain, to exploring, try to play with different audio styles, with music, with, without, different instruments, speech. And another one, like pay attention to how fast is your ad going, whether it's static, whether it's high motion, low motion, and pay attention that some of that may really work to one audience or not work to another. When we're moving to the end of funnel, in this case, we see that the branding itself is really matter, but there are 2 things that we see keep on being and has a really high performance. The first one is keeping the social proof index. And the second one is keeping the small amount of object, which is really clear what exactly we're trying to tell. And again, remember to keep on trying to try out different audio styles, starting slow motion, high motions frame. And in the end of funnel, we again suggest you to try to have different discounts, whether it's buy one, get one, different percentage discount, something that will tell the person that, yes, I should buy right now, or I should convert right now following this ad. Overall, when we're talking about videos, we saw 2 main things: social proof and focusing on small amount of objects per frame. Like don't really overdo it. And everything else is really something you should consider to explore it. But remember, you need to know that you can analyze that and see its performance in the end. I'll be really happy to share with you some more examples regarding our videos, how to use it in a good way. But recently we had one of our blog posts about the Super Bowl ads, when we can really show how the Super Bowl ads use this kind of elements within the videos. And I really suggest you to check this out. The last topic I'll be really happy to bring on is to give you a little understanding of creative fatigue. Now, what is it and why does that matter? One thing we need to know that even if we have a killing it ad, it doesn't mean that it's going to overperform forever. Over time, it can get fatigued. And that means that people over time get tired of seeing this ad over and over again, and maybe it's time to change. How do we identify fatigue? Like, how do we know that this ad is getting fatigue or not? Normally, the way to look at an ad fatigue is by seeing that this specific ad or specific creative shows a kind of a consistent drop in performance over time without having a consistent drop in budget, meaning that something that could have been amazingly, we spent less money and got amazing results, suddenly starts dropping, meaning we need to spend more money to get the same results, or even if we spend more and more money, the results are really dropping. And what can we do when it happens? The first one is just like Edgar said in the beginning, we need to know to stop ads which are not working or showing fatigue. So we need to stop it from spending money so it wouldn't go and make us lose more and more money. And the second thing, we need to try to refresh it by 2 options. The first one, we can update a totally new creative. And by second one, we can basically try to modify this creative with small changes. So as you can see, here is an example of a fatigue analysis that Pudding can do and the result that it would give. So it can tell you what is the fatiguing and provide you some kind of insight of what you should be doing and how you can change, what kind of small changes you can make that should increase your ad, modify that, and make it be awesome again. And that's basically something, one of the things that when we are talking about different elements within ads and within creative, this is like some of the things that we need to consider. Oh, I stopped sharing my screen. One moment. And the last, so summarizing basically everything we talked about. So there are 5 things that we need to remember. The first one is to start with a KPI. We need to know what we measure and what we are tracking when we're looking at our creative and at our conversion goal. It's really important. We need to choose something that we start at the beginning of the funnel and everything that we put all the way to the end. The second one is to make sure to track both of them from the beginning. The third is set a tone on your creative, like build your brand and keep consistent with it. You can use on that one of the things, and the last one is that we definitely suggest you to try those best practices and measure your creative, but in the end, remember that you should be able to test everything and to measure that. So testing is up to you, and if you're looking for a way to measure your creative and get those insights every time and have them on your hands, so this is what Pudding is doing, and we really suggest you and offer you to join us and to try that out. Thank you very much, guys. Elad, I'm giving you back the host.
Thanks. That was very insightful. Love these examples. And we'll be hopping now into the Q&A section. And just before we go forward with that, let me quickly share my screen. So just before that, a final shameless plug. We have a special offer for everybody who's here on the webinar. If you sign up for the Fixel plans until the end of the month, we have a 25% off on all plans. Just use this coupon Creatives25 on checkout, and you'll receive a 25% discount for 12 months. We also have a special offer by the friends at Pudding. It's pretty awesome. You can get a free audit of your creatives. It's something that usually costs quite a bit because it's very resourceful to run these kind of analysis. So you can log in, use this link here, Pudding AI/creative-audit, plug in your Facebook account, and you'll receive a detailed report of what your creative looks like and performs like. So try it out. It's pretty awesome. I can recommend it myself. Now, we're moving forward into the Q&A with Edgar and Anastasia. Edgar, if you can open up your camera as well. So I see we have several questions listed here, and I'll be happy kind of to share them with you. So first off, Anastasia, this one's to you. Do you see differences in what you've mentioned between different types of businesses? Would this apply differently to other B2C segments or B2B even?
So yes, one really important thing regarding creative is that we see differences from business to business, from brand to brand, company to company, and even sometimes from different target audiences. Also, we can see that there are some changes regarding trends as the time going, things that work really well on a specific time frame, and then they're changing. So one of the things that's really important in the world of creative is coming up with great ideas, but don't stuck to best practices for too long, because those may change, and you should always measure and always try to innovate in the creative world.
For sure. Constant learning and moving. You can't stay static. That's definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I see we also have another question here. Let me pull it up. What about predictive analysis? Is there any way to predict performance of certain creatives?
So there is a way to predict performance of certain elements, of certain ideas, because one of the things that we know is that as we go, we can see that there are some kind of combinations, some kind of elements, some kind of things that are working or not. And we can definitely see that there is trends regarding that. So, and those trends, if we catch them, can really predict whether something new that we upload has a higher or a lower chance to succeed. So yes.
Cool. And another question we have here, I believe, Edgar, this one's for you. How will our iOS 14 impact remarketing? What's your take on that?
It will impact the if I want to be 100% sincere, we still don't know 100% because Facebook didn't release all this information. What we do know that for the identified, for the user that didn't give their consent within the iOS, the audience size will shrink. We still don't know if it's going to be 10, 20, 30%. It won't be super dramatic because we believe that we'll see a lot of visits that going within the Facebook in-app browser. It does have less limits and it's have almost no limits on the audiences. And there are still some questions regarding what happened in use cases that someone logged in from the browser. But in most of the cases, it will impact, but not a lot, because the audiences won't be impacted by the ATV limits. Facebook saying it very, very clearly, and they just say it like 1 month ago. We waited like for 3 months to understand, does the audience is going to be impacted by the AEM protocol? So the answer is no, they won't be impacted. They will be impacted by the Apple blocking. And we still have some questions what's going to happen once Apple will launch their PCM protocol. But in the short run, we will see the audience size shrink a bit, but not something that dramatic as we thought initially. Mm-hmm. And for the audiences in the tracking, Elad is like, Elad is the real expert. So if you're nodding his head, so I'm fine on this. And I would recommend using the CAPI, the server-to-server conversion that allow marketers to increase the metric and to get less severe damage from those changes.
For sure, for sure. One thing that's worth maybe pointing out that these changes are around the corner. iOS 14.5 has been released to public beta. So this is the final step before releasing it to general availability to anyone. So we're actually expecting all this to span out over the next few weeks. So really change is imminent, and we're really expecting this to come upon us over the next couple of weeks. I see another question. This is really something that has personally also baffled me, Anastasia. What do you see in terms of data on long form ads that really have this kind of longer text that we're seeing? It's usually common, I'd say, with some kind of affiliate and all these different practices. But I've been curious to see what's your data on it.
So a while ago, it really seems like the shorter, the better. But one of the things that we started seeing lately is that it varies. We see that for some of our clients, for some brands, sometimes, having some kind of emojis and suggestions and a link in the end, some kind of, hey, purge this here or click on that is actually working really well for them. Sometimes in other places, we see that actually having a really short memo matters. Sometimes we see that it really doesn't matter how short or how long the copy is attached to that. Maybe because in some brands, people are just really looking at the call to action and at the ad itself and not at the suggestion copy with it. So it's something that I really suggest each brand to try out and to see what's working more for them. And to be able to analyze how different elements using emojis, using length, whether having links or not working for them. This is like one of the things that we couldn't do for our clients, but whether you use us or you do it yourself, we really suggest you to test this out.
Cool, cool. It's interesting to see that it's indecisive in a sense, because really there's been a huge kind of blast of advertisers using this kind of long form copies, and at some point it kind of phased out. But it's interesting. And we have time for one last question that we have here from Noah. Will this change hurt mainly big companies or smaller ones? This is an interesting question. Edgar, what's your take on that one?
So I think that in the short run, when we talk about the first months, I think it will impact on everyone in the very short run, because everyone will have a mess. And people going,
No good
companies
news
that
yet.
are not ready. And in Fixel, we're working like from small brands and agencies of 2-3 people up to brands that sell billions of dollars. And we're seeing everyone, and we're seeing that some of the brands understand that right now, all they want is not to see a huge drop. They say, if I will see a small drop, I'm fine. I'm afraid I will see a huge drop in the performance. And this is the very smart brands. The brands and the ad agencies that are not ready, going to see way less conversions. They're going to start blame Facebook, Google, Apple, everyone. And this is your role to understand, to make those changes according. Some of those tips is recommended here. Some you can find on our previous webinars, and you will get a link to our blog post on the site, and you can see way more recommendation over there how to prepare your audiences. I think in the long run, what's going to happen is that Facebook and Google, both of them, going to push way more into their siloed platform. And it's going to be a big win for the small companies in the short run, because it will be fantastic. People will see amazing numbers. But when you rely on someone else, on Facebook or on Google or on Amazon or on Walmart, or when you're eventually in the top of a marketplace, you don't build brands. Marketers, marketplaces can build their own brand. They don't build the seller brand. So I think there's going to be a problem for marketers that won't be ready, and becoming from a small to medium brand going to be harder today. And I assume that the big brands will find the solution because they have way more resource and they have their loyal data. And I assume their damage going to be smaller. When we talk like in a 1 year, 2 year, I think their damage going to be smaller than the small brands that won't focus their efforts on building their brands.
Cool. Thank you for that thorough answer. So this wraps it up for today. So thank you everybody for joining on, and thank you for Edgar and Anastasia for taking the time and walking us through all these changes and how we can better prepare for them. The full recording will be shared with everybody that's been on the webinar. Also, we'll be sharing out the deck. So really, thank you for joining on, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.